Leslie, that talk about driving made total sense to me. Very sensible, because I remember when I reported to Hanscom Air Force Base and they wanted to orient newcomers to how to drive in Boston. They said, using your blinker is like giving intelligence to the enemy. If you see an opening, go for it. And your horn is to make a statement. And eye contact is considered a weakness. All right, so this part of the program, people get to speak extemporaneously without any preparation or knowing what's coming up. So we formulate a few questions to make you feel comfortable speaking for a couple of minutes. And our first question of the day, and I'd like to ask Mickey to come up, is where would you most like to travel and why?
Hello. I think I'd like to go back to Bali. I was there many, many years ago with my husband and brother-in-law and sister-in-law. And that is a most interesting and lovely island. The people are very, very warm. They're very touchy-feely. And we went on the beach. My husband has a lot of hair on his chest and his back. And the native women love that. And would come up and pat him. They also make beautiful kites, and they fly kites in the morning. And they also have 4 names that they give to their children. It's just 4 names. The child number 1 gets the first name. I don't remember what the names are. But each one gets the name corresponding to their number in the family. And then after 4 children, then they start again with number 1. I'll just tell you one more thing. We had a taxi driver who was wonderful, who told us about the 2 wives that he had. And he said, you should never do that, because you have to get 2 houses, because they fight like mad. He also had a pink thumbnail that had polish on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our second question of the day goes to Bob. Bob, how do you think our culture will change in the next 100 years, and why?
Talk about a tough one. Well, for one thing, I'm not going to be around the next 100 years. I don't think so. When I think about dying, I often think, I'm not going to find out what's going to happen. And that's the part that concerns me the most. Kind of concerned about our culture right now, what's going on in the country, and the hatred and the fact that certain politicians are pitting one group of Americans against another. I am just hoping that we do not have that in the next 100 years. And we will realize that we look a little different. Some people have darker skin than others. They have different facial features, but I've met people from all different racial groups, and they're all just people. People, some I like, some I don't, but they all have personalities, and I don't understand this whole thing about why we should care about people's minor differences, when what we have in common is much more important. Going on a bit, since I've got a little more time, technologically, I always wonder, whenever I see the future, they always show flying cars, and you see these science fiction movies that predicted the future. Where are the flying cars, and when are we going to have them?
Okay, this goes out to a guest, so if we have a volunteer, that would be great.
And we want to explain that they have the option of changing the subject.
Yes, and if you're not comfortable with the topic or the subject, you have the option to speak about whatever you want.
Or the option of already talking.
Or not speaking at all. I think I need an interpreter. When you're down, what makes you feel better and why? So I think I'd like to ask Greg to come up and tell us that. When you're down, what makes you feel better and why?
Thank you, Table Topic Master. This is a very interesting question and one that haven't really given much thought about, to be honest, but as we're faced with the objective of speaking extemporaneously on these table topics, I'm just going to kind of come to what comes to mind first. And that would be that I feel like to this point in my life, I'm 36 years old, I've been pretty successful, and I have a wife, 2 young kids, a very good job, done basically everything that I wanted to do to this point in my life. And I feel like when I get down, I look to that as a way to get me a little bit out of that negative mindset and kind of bring my spirits up a bit. I always think that at the end of the day, you have a roof over your head, food on the table, happy family, good job. Those are the main things in life that you strive to, you hope for, and if those are in place, then your life's not so bad, and whatever you're dealing with in that moment is really not that bad, and you can kind of persevere through it. Thank you, Table Topic Master.
What more would you ask for? Last question goes to Peter. Peter, what do you love about your hometown and why?
Thank you, Rich. I'm actually going to segue to memories, because there's a memory I want to share with you. But I'm going to link it to my hometown, which is Lexington. On the front page of the Lexington paper a couple of weeks ago was a picture of a tennis player. His name was Tim Mayotte. And I don't know if any of you are tennis players, you might know that name. I'm now going to segue to the memory. I've been in Toastmasters for a long time, but I haven't mentioned to you one thing about my life. Actually, a lot of things about my life, but one thing I haven't mentioned is I was a ranked tennis player as a kid in New England. So for under 12s, this is a long time ago, under 12s, I got to number 12 in New England, and under 14 boys, I got to like number 16. Okay, it's 50 years ago. Who cares? Who remembers? I don't even play tennis anymore. So who remembers? But one thing that all tennis players remember is who was the best person they ever beat. When I was 13, I was in a tournament in Connecticut, and I'd heard about this hot whatever kid, and his name was Tim Mayotte. He was 11, and he was sick. Okay, people said, "You're going to play Tim Mayotte, but he's much younger than you, but he's sick today." Okay, I'm a tennis player. I want to win. Great, he's sick. Terrific. So I played Tim Mayotte, and I beat him 6-2, 6-love. All right, that was 50 years ago. I still remember. But I ran into him a month ago, and I said, "Tim," I was kidding with him. I said, "You were the best win I ever had." Not thinking he'd remember, not thinking that he would know the memory. And he said, "Yeah, 6-2, 6-love. 50 years ago. He became number 7 in the world, and he went to the semifinals of Wimbledon, and he won a silver medal in the Olympics. And I beat him at 13, and he still remembers.